And there are some stunning new claims being made about the goings-on inside the White House. And they come from the journalist whose reporting helped bring down President Richard Nixon. CNN is reporting on the contents of Bob Woodward's new book. It's called Fear: Trump in the White House. And they say the president's former chief economic advisor, who you see here, Gary Cohn, and former aide Rob Porter, seen there, both removed draft letters from Donald Trump's desk on not once but multiple occasions, in essence, to protect the president from himself. In one such instance, the letter was a notification that the U.S. was going to withdraw from NAFTA. These are just some of the revelations coming out today. Joining me now with more on this is Stephen Farnsworth. He's a political science professor at the University of Mary Washington, joining me today in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Professor, good to have you on the program.
Glad to be here.
We've heard of disharmony and chaos in the White House before. Why do these particular tales carry more weight?
Well, the amazing thing about Bob Woodward as a journalist is his ability to get people to say things. And, a lot of these claims are coming with specific names attached. The defense secretary, the chief of staff to the president, people on the inside on the record about amazing developments. And so this isn't one of those anonymous sources, although there are, of course, some in the book. By and large, you have people at the highest levels of the Trump administration talking about how they made sure that Donald Trump didn't see documents because they were worried about the reaction. They didn't leave them around for him to sign them because they were worried about the consequences. They simply did not trust him to do the job in the way that they considered appropriate.
To your point, the book Fire and Fury by Michael Wolff initially caused a lot of headlines as well, but then it seemed to be slightly discredited because, again, he couldn't source it. We're talking about a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist here, and Bob Woodward, who quotes Trump's advisors who would say the president, John Kelly, called the president an idiot, said that he was unhinged, taking documents away from the president so that he wouldn't see them and do damage. I mean, this is unprecedented.
It really is. I mean, I think that you're looking at someone with respect to Bob Woodward, who really knows Washington extraordinarily well. He started covering the Nixon White House during the Watergate scandal, looking at that scandal. But he's been writing about presidents ever since. He had books on Clinton and Bush and Obama, and over again, he astonishes Washington with the depth of his sources and his ability to get them to say things that don't necessarily put their presidents in the best of lights. Now, there's a difference, though, between saying that Bill Clinton was sometimes too tired, he didn't necessarily pace himself well when he was making decisions, that there was a graduate seminar disorganization at the White House in the Clinton years or the Obama years. That's very different than what is being said about President Trump. And so while every presidency has a steep learning curve, it really suggests that Donald Trump isn't growing all that much in this job.
One more question on this topic before we move to Brett Kavanaugh, but will this have any impact on the midterm elections, in your opinion? The book officially comes out September 11th.
Well, I think part of the issue is going to be what happens next in terms of how people respond. I mean, does Donald Trump keep these people in office if they have insulted him and belittled him and in many ways kept him from being able to be fully president? Remember, some of the information that he didn't receive, he might have come to different decisions and might have handled things differently. I think it's a tough call for President Trump to keep such people around all that long. If you can't trust the people closest to you, you've got a big problem, and that's particularly true for a president. So I tend to think the real consequences of this book may depend on the president's next move in terms of whether he basically cleans house in his White House and his administration, or he doesn't, because if he does make those big steps, that's going to really hurt the arguments that Republicans are making about the Trump presidency getting better.
Yeah, he's been very quiet on Twitter so far, Professor, so we will have to wait and see. Meantime, in a minute left to talk about Brett Kavanaugh and his Supreme Court nomination. The Democrats wanted to adjourn the hearings because not all the information about Mr. Kavanaugh has been released. There were thousands and thousands of documents about how he has adjudicated in the past that were not released publicly until the last minute. What are we to make of that?
Well, I think it's clear that the Republicans believe that they have released enough information. It may be that some of the information that hasn't been released is damaging to this nominee, but it's not clear to me that the Democrats are going to be able to compel anyone to provide that information. What you see right now is perhaps all you're going to get in terms of public disclosure of this man's record. And there are certainly some controversial issues. And I think the key issue going forward is how he handles the questions from the senators about what he knew with respect to terrorism and waterboarding during the years that he worked within the Bush administration. The questions of the evidence that was used to start the war in Iraq and other issues like that in terms of questions that the Bush administration was involved in that may have involved human rights issues. So there's a lot that may be asked about. But normally by the time these nominees get to the Senate hearing, they're pretty well coached and pretty careful, and they're not likely to say something really explosive. So I anticipate that in this case as well.
Okay, so a quick yes or no, will he be confirmed?
Best guess right now, more likely than not.
Stephen, good to talk to you as always. Thank you.
Thank you.
Political science professor Stephen Farnsworth joining me today.